Welcome everyone. This is the You the Future podcast, and today we have with us Janhavi Apte, who is in Oxford University right now. She is researching stem cell biology. She's 25 years old and she is 1 year into remission. And Janhavi has very great insights to share with us. And let's begin. Right, so Sushrut, hi Janhavi.
Hi.
Okay, so I would like to ask you, what is stem cell research? Because a lot of people, a
Okay.
lot of us don't know about it. So
Right. So stem cells are basically cells in your body that have the potential to give rise to a number of tissues. So if there's heart stem cells, then it's heart muscles, vessels, and such. So we use this technology to basically investigate the differences between tumor cells in cancer and stem cells in our body. So they are quite similar. So we find the differences between these and then we try to target the differences to come up with a treatment for cancer. So my current lab works on leukemia. So this is what we do. But obviously stem cells are everywhere, every organ of your body that you can possibly imagine. So different
amazing,
applications.
amazing. So, what made you interested in this field? Like, do you have some story about this?
Yeah. So my parents are engineers and they wanted me to become an engineer. And very early on, first class of M Prakash, people who are from Pune will understand this.
Right.
I understood that I don't want to become an engineer. So immediately shifted my focus to biology. Quite liked it. Did not like blood. So medicine was out. And then the only option was research. And that's how basically I started reading up on it. And it's close to medicine, but not quite medicine, where you have to look at dead bodies. So,
Amazing.
so that's that's how I became interested in this. This
So you're in Oxford, right? So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so it's a very prestigious university, right? So is there something you have a so-called story of Oxford?
So many. Well, the story of how I got in Oxford is not that exciting. I did my master's in stem cells from University of Nottingham in England. Came home and randomly started applying for jobs. And then one fine day, I just get an email from Oxford saying, "Oh, by the way, you've been selected for an interview." The interview was an hour long, went horribly. It was the worst interview I've given, but for some reason, I got selected, and here I am, 3 years now, minus the one where I was in treatment.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So now let's get into, you said you were 1 year into remission, right?
Yeah.
This is the first year of a remission. So can you
Yeah.
tell us more about it? And for those of you who don't know, she's 1 year into remission right now. She had this tumor in her body. Let her talk about it, Janvi.
Yeah, so it was in 2018 that I was diagnosed with a grade 3 invasive carcinoma of the breast. And at this point, I'm 23 years old. I was diagnosed in Oxford. And after that, obviously, I had to come back home to India because this is where my support system is. And I came back and I started my year-long treatment, which was basically 3 surgeries, 18 chemotherapies, and then a year long of radiation treatment. So then after all of that, now I'm in remission, which means that I'm cancer free for a year after the tests and stuff.
The recovery process.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you, like, you got this. What was the initial reaction of you and your parents when you first got to know about this? Like, what was it?
So it was obviously quite shocking because I am not in the usual risk group that this falls in. This is normally a disease that affects women who are older than 40 years old, or who have health problems such as obesity or alcoholism, especially. But because I'm neither, it was quite shocking. I think for my parents it was worse because they are, as I said, they're both engineers and they don't have a clue about biology, so they don't know what this is, and it was quite shocking and they were sad about it. For me, it was easier to cope, surprisingly, because I am in this field, right? Like I work with cancer biologists and I'm a stem cell biologist, so it was easier for me to cope with this information. Like I have this, and my immediate reaction was, "What's next?" rather than
Right.
about okay, now I have it and all this.
Rather than
So
the reaction you choose to respond, right?
yeah.
reacting.
It's just information. It was because of the information. Otherwise, I would have been quite sad. But thankfully, I didn't have the time. In my head, I was like, okay, what's the next logical step, rather than
Keep
Yeah.
moving.
Yeah. So must have been shocking. I want to ask you, like, you were in this for a year. It was a painful process, and everything. So, what was your self-talk? Because self-talk is really important, right? How did you talk to yourself? What did you tell yourself about this whole thing? How did you console yourself? And what was the overall talk that you gave to yourself? How important is it?
Yeah, I think the most important thing for me at this point was the fact that I knew that each day that I'm suffering is a day closer to remission. If you look at it in this way, I think it's quite positive. If you keep whinging about like, oh, now this is happening, now this is happening, now I'm getting bone ache, now I'm getting hair loss, you are going to reach nowhere. So I think that's quite important. I think the second thing that was quite important in this whole process was, more on the outlook of the disease, because I read a lot about my disease. I read a lot about how chemotherapy works and what it targets, right? And if you have this information about how it works, it becomes easier to cope with the effects of chemotherapy, because you know that it's killing the cancer. There's a reason why you're feeling like this, and it's because the chemotherapy is getting rid of the cancer. So that just makes it a bit more positive, and it makes it easier to cope with, basically. So yeah.
Amazing. So I would like to ask you, like, how did you console yourself? How did you console yourself out of this, and how did the knowledge of knowing what you are suffering through help you get over the fear?
So I'll talk about knowledge, right? So this is one example that I give everyone. Like, I think in cancer therapy, hair loss is one of the most evident things that you will see in chemotherapy. And for a lot of women and men, it's quite a big blow, because like, you have seen yourself with hair all your life, right? Like, imagine just shaving it off one day and then you're like, oh shit, like you don't know who you are.
Understand?
So I think the one of the examples that I would like to give, and I give this quite a lot, is that if you know the science behind this. So for example, chemotherapy targets the actively dividing cells in your body, which is your hair follicle and also your cancer cells. So in a way, if your hair is falling out, the chemotherapy is attacking the cancer cells. You see the connection. So if you look at this way, and this I only knew because I'm in the field, right? So I think this was more of the science was more of I think brought slight warmth to the process, because I knew what was happening in my body. And that's what I would tell myself every day, every time I would look different, or every time I suffered from bone ache or whatever. If there's always a reason behind it. And I think you have to look at it like this more than just.
So basically, the knowledge helped you to get the right perspective and get over your fear, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Amazing. So I would also like to ask you, how did you keep your healthy state of mind during this complete treatment thing?
Okay, so I think for me also this was easy, because I'm naturally an introvert, and I don't I like people and I go out, but after some time then I feel like I just want to be by myself in a room. So this was quite easy. But I think I read a lot. I played the piano quite a bit. I talked to my friends a lot. This is one thing. I socialized. They would come over for a cup of tea and we just talk about and whatever, and that was quite nice. So I think all these things, just small things, like just go out for a walk, do photography, post fun pictures on Instagram, whatever makes you feel good. Dress yourself up, wear some makeup for the girls and the boys. Whatever makes you feel good. Just small things, but make sure you do it. This was my motive. Don't just lie in bed and think about the disease. This is it. Like, that's the solution.
So you were very positive when you looked at this whole experience.
I think so.
Yeah, you had the knowledge. That's why you knew what was going on.
Exactly.
And that's what proved very well. I would love to ask you this, that what is the one piece of advice you would like to people who are suffering from this right now?
I think it's more about your state of mind, because the physical aspect of the disease can't be ignored. You are going to go through operations, you are going to go through chemo and radiation, and suffering that comes with it, which is physical, is quite inevitable. It's going to come. What you can do to improve your state is your mental state, and I am not the one to promote like, oh, positivity, just like, yeah, listen to whatever you like from our conversations, you know that I'm not that person.
Right.
But I would still say do what makes you happy, but do it, like read a book,
Yeah.
listen to music, socialize with friends, talk to family in a normal way, as if you're not going through the disease. Don't like focus on the disease, focus on your hobbies. Like, maybe think of this as a break. I thought of it as a break. Like, my life in Oxford was so hectic. I had to go to lab at like odd hours. When I went back, I was like, oh, this is like free vacation, and I'm also getting paid for it because
Amazing.
I now have cancer. So they can't like not pay me. But like, look at it in a different way. Don't let sympathy of other people affect you, because they only want to make you feel better. They just don't know how. So don't let it affect you, I guess. Uh,
Amazing. And did you like face any public judgment or maybe some, I don't know, some random advice that people give?
yeah, like loads of random unasked for India. So we know, you pray, your things will go away, whatever nonsensical things. Some stigma also, because people have never seen me the way they've seen me. There was that. So yeah, so loads. So this is one thing that other people also need to do, is like just to be sensitive towards the patient a little bit, because uh, you don't know what they're going through. So don't be judgmental about what they're doing. Just let them be. Don't give unsolicited advice to them, because that is irritating.
Right.
Especially when you're going through a treatment, it's fairly irritating. So unless they ask you, don't give advice. Just be there to listen to them.
What did you tell yourself? Like, you had to go undergo this harsh therapy for a year. So,
Yeah.
what did you tell yourself when you saw the pictures of your friends on social media, like going out, partying, clubbing, and all that? What did you tell yourself that, made you feel better about the situation?
I think the only thing is, like, it is what it is. That once you accept this, everything becomes so easy. You say, ki, yeah, this is not my year, unfortunately. But you don't have to be vindictive, ki, oh shit, they are going out. Like, you don't have to bring this emotion. They are doing their own thing. They have their own problems. They are going out. I can't go out because I have my own problems, and it's temporary, right? This is
Like
what I
focusing on
always say
yourself.
to myself. It's not going to last forever. Just this year. Then after this, I'm going to go out.
Everything shall
So,
pass.
yeah, like it's very. Once you accept this state of being, you're fine. You don't need to compare yourself with their situations or whatever.
Yeah,
Just
comparison is the root of all evil. Comparison is the derivation of happiness, right?
exactly. Yeah.
So, but that, and what are the core beliefs that you stuck to during this time? Like, what are your core beliefs, or what do you believe in truly, which affects your mental health and also your perspective?
So I think one of my strengths and also weaknesses is that I am a scientist. So I look at it from a very technical point of view always. And some people always feel that I'm cold, or I'm, not quite there, because I sometimes fail to show emotion, because I'm looking at it from a very extremely practical point of view or whatever. But this is also strength. Like in this case, this was a major strength. Um, because yeah, like my core beliefs are basically, I believe in things that I can see that have a proof, and this is what helps you right in therapy. If you're in, let's say you're in mental health therapy or some sort of disease therapy, seeing what's happening, there's a reason behind it, and you accept it. Like, it's as simple and clean as that. uh, so I think this helped me, although I wouldn't say this is my core belief, but I think this was a belief that helped me get through um,
Okay,
stuff.
so I'd
My
like to
core
hear
belief.
more about this perspective, this practical approach to everything. So, how do you think
Yeah.
one can maybe imbibe this perspective?
Uh, I I mean, yeah, some people could if they're flexible enough. Some people just deal with it in their own way, but I think that's their prerogative. But I firmly believe that knowledge is power, and the more you know about something, the more you can make sense of it.
Hmm.
So I always try promoting this message that, be aware, stop spreading stuff that hasn't any proof. Um,
Hmm.
know more about everything in general. But I think that's just me. So I can't, like, people can't force you or beliefs on them. So it's a take it or leave it kind of a situation.
Yeah,
Or,
so one thing, I've like heard the chemotherapy is really harsh,
yeah.
and yeah, the radiation therapy also is not like it's very harsh. So how did you
Yeah.
deal with the pain, the physical pain?
There is, like, unfortunately, people and also patients who have gone through this will understand that there is no actual cure for the symptoms of chemotherapy or radiotherapy, because it is what, as I said, it is what it is. It is killing all the cells in your body. It's not just the cancer cells, it's also killing your stem cells. So for you to feel weak or for you to feel nauseous, there is no cure for that, or there is no distraction physically from that. You have to go through it. The only way you can distract yourself from it is if you do activities. Like I would, for example, on my good days, I would just go out in fresh, take a walk, and that made me feel slightly normal because I see other people around me doing the same thing, doing their routine, and it was like slight normalcy.
Like keeping yourself busy and keeping your mind off of it.
Exactly, and also, yeah, exercise is quite important. Although in cancer, a lot of people can't do it because they're super weak, but when they can, on their good days, they should. It helps, like, massively. So yeah.
So one thing I would love to ask you is, out of this whole experience, now when you look back at it, what are the qualities that you gained, and what is it that you're most proud about?
So I think first is strength. Like, you don't know how much physical strength you have until you, like, endure something like this. Like, So I think one of the qualities is this, that I know that I can sustain this and much worse.
Right.
Second thing is, I feel like I've stopped complaining a lot, because then I'm always like, yeah, but at least I'm healthy now.
Right.
Whatever happens, whatever is to happen, it's not as bad as what I've been through. So it's new perspective on life in general. So it helps you cope with the situation and deal with it slightly better.
So you've got something to compare against. Like, इससे बुरा
Exactly.
कुछ नहीं हो सकता.
Exactly. Exactly.
So knowing yourself and knowing your limits, like how much pain you can go through, and simply stopping, like simply stop complaining about it.
Exactly. Yeah. Because, yeah, you complain about everything in your life, right? You don't understand how privileged you are. Everyone is guilty of this. But once you go through something like this, then you don't look at it as a challenge. You're more like, yeah, this will happen. It will happen. All I have to do is be prepared for it. Like, this is my mental approach
Yeah.
normally now.
So you found this reservoir of strength which was not there before. So and
Yes.
so what, like, when you look back at it now, what advice do you want to give to your prior selves?
Oh God. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, to be honest, I personally believe that I did a great job of, like, and doing this. So no advice here. Like, I don't want to give any. Maybe maybe some words of reinforcement that, yeah, it does get better. It is not going to, because there were some days, like, obviously, down in the trenches, and, oh, why is this happening to me? The classic question. So I would like to tell my former self that, don't waste your time asking yourself these questions. It does get better. It is all temporary, and you will do successfully on the other side, I think. Um,
Amazing. So cool. So I'd also like to ask you how big a role was your family and were your family and friends playing in this complete treatment thing?
I think both the parties, there was like a massive strength, source of strength for me. My family was amazing through all of it. Like they made it their new normal, and just did like literally everything in their capacity that they could do to make me feel better, and it was quite good. My friends, I would like to stress this point because the your friends are not your family, so they don't have to live with you or they don't have to bear your but did it, and I am fortunate to have a wonderful friends. So they uplifted me through everything, like post surgery, post chemos, on my birthday, just everything. So I think they were one of the most a pole of strength for me, and I think I drew a lot of my energy from them as well. So yeah, massive
Amazing.
treatment. Yeah.
My sister told me that you have actually, like, you handled this whole thing with immense grace, and she saw a lot of, like, positive stuff when you were going through this. And like, how did you maintain your composure when, like, what when this was happening? Like, how did you decide to keep positive, and how did you make, like, how was your situation, or how was your belief, or how was your mind at that point of time?
Yeah, I think it was I think it gives me more strength, and I have gotten a lot of feedback from a lot of people saying that, you know what, actually, if I talk to you, I don't feel as if though you're ill or you're going through this, because of my very straightforward nature. Like, I will tell you how it is. Like, if you ask me about the disease, I will tell you how it is. If you ask me how I'm feeling right now, I'd just be like, yeah, even though I had chemotherapy just day before, right now I'm feeling fine, clearly, because right now I'm talking to you, I'm out with friends, so I feel fine. And I think that's what people drew from this, because a lot of patients don't do this. They don't go out, they don't socialize, they are not open about their disease. So I think this is what this is where the feedback that you also heard from your sister must have come from, because I was quite open about it, and I was quite out there with it, because I'm just like, yeah, just ask me anything, I'll tell you. It's quite cool. I had this surgery. They put a tube in my aorta, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so when you put out your fears or your weaknesses, you actually get leverage over them, right?
Exactly, that's it, right? That's the whole point. The more you talk about it, the more you overcome it, I think. You can't hide it in a closet and be like, oh, because the more skeletons you have in your closet, the more it's going to affect you. And why should it? Like, it's not something you chose, it's not something that you wanted, it's something that happened to you, and I think it's just natural. Everyone should do this. Just open up about whatever you're feeling, and I think you'd be fine.
You have to make it the new normal, right?
Exactly, that's it.
So you had this experience. You look at it in a really positive perspective. So, like, what was the most positive thing that came out?
Yeah, so I think the most positive thing was that I think my friendships with my friends became extremely strong. You have good friends, but when you go through something like this, when you rely on them and when you can depend on them, count on them for every single moment of happiness, that's when you know that they're your true friends, right? So this was my biggest win, that I found out that my friend circle, my core friend circle, they're actually my friends and they're my family in a way. So I think this was the most positive thing that could have come out of it. So
Amazing.
Can you tell us a story from which, like, one you
yeah,
remember?
oh, this was I was it was just end of my treatment, and I got a infection in my port. So there's a port from which you get your chemotherapy, and I went into septic shock. So it was quite bad, and I had to have a emergency surgery to get this port out, right? And I was stuck in the hospital for like 4 days, and my last chemotherapy was pending. So it was just as so like at the end, and I'm like, oh shit, now I have to wait for that last thing to happen. So it was quite disappointing, because I had plans after that. So I was in the hospital, and I was quite yeah, disappointed and sad. And my friends came to the hospital with balloons and streamers and all this jazz, and they decorated my hospital room, which is such a small and cheesy thing, but I loved it. Like at that point of time, it was so cute. And
Yeah.
then at the same duration, I remember that all my friends, it was the same chunk of hospital time when they came and we planned our first ever trip, all of us together. Ended up actually going to Thailand after I finished all of my treatment as a breather, and it was so cool. Then I could immediately, like, my mind was planning forward for this trip, and I was completely happy for the next 3 days that I was in hospital because I'm dreaming about this trip. So I think that was the best thing that came out of it. Um,
Amazing.
Wow.
Great.
That was
So,
really a nice gesture.
Yeah, and we
very
booked
well.
our tickets. We booked our tickets when I was lying in the hospital with saline. You know, it
Nice.
was like that. So it was a very very weird but a very nice story.
Yeah, because you knew that you were going to get past this. You knew that
Exactly.
this was temporary. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was you never doubted yourself.
No. No.
Wow.
No.
Good.
Majority of the people doubt themselves when you're diagnosed with something of this kind.
Yeah, but I mean, also I got some assurances from my surgeon, especially. He's amazing. Um, he would keep telling me stories about success stories and this, but I think, yeah, it is what it is. And unfortunately for some people, it's not as uh, quick as a year-long treatment and then going back to remission, which is quite sad. Uh, but even then it is what it is, so like make the most of what you have in that moment.
Accepting the reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more thing. What is the like in all of your all 25 years? What is the worst piece of advice that you ever received?
uh Believe in God.
Yeah.
And yeah, because I know a few people who believe in God and depend on God to make their problems disappear, and just doesn't work that way. Worst piece of
Yeah.
advice. Oh, one more worst piece of advice. Wait. Married before you're 28, otherwise you will never find a good life partner ever, and all the good men will be taken. So maybe this
That's
is worse than believe in God, actually.
yeah. And what is the best piece of advice that you've received?
The best piece of advice that I received was, believe in yourself and things will be okay. And this is something that my oncosurgeon said to me. He was like, believe in yourself, it's not the end, it will all be okay. And I still heed to it till this day.
Yeah, because
Oh,
the safest
amazing.
hands are still always your own.
Um, what is the one piece of advice, or maybe one thing that you learned through this complete treatment thing?
Yeah, information is power, guys. Like, what, it doesn't matter if it's a disease, it doesn't matter if it's a random situation. Learn as much as possible. Question the doctors about what they're doing, why they're doing it, or any other individual who's like higher up in power. Always have enough knowledge to debate. And if they don't give an answer, seek an answer. Like, don't be scared to ask questions. That's one
Uh,
thing.
One more
Amazing.
thing I would love to ask you. Right? What is like in India? How like is I I was like going through an interview, and
Yeah.
the interview was really good. So you talked about the support groups and cafes and all that. Can
Yeah.
you tell us some more about it?
Yeah, so in UK especially, it's a very established system where there's a cafe and there's psycho-oncologists who sit there, and it's a very open system where you get a referral and then you just go in this cafe and there's people to help you, right? So you just go and you sit down and you talk about what's bothering you. It's very informal. It's not stressful at all, and what this does is it kind of helps you unload whatever you're thinking, especially when it comes to cancer treatment or your anxiousness, whatever. Even after you've overcome this disease, some people experience post-traumatic stress, and people are here to help you. So it's quite cool. And support groups are basically just one psychologist with a bunch of cancer patients or post-cancer patients, and they just talk about what's bothering them. And what this does is when you voice your concerns, 10 other people have the same concerns. So you realize that first, you're not alone. And second, you can talk to other people about this, right? So it reduces the stress massively. And it's really, really helpful. And we don't have this, unfortunately, in India, but hopefully some of working towards this. So yeah, I was hoping.
Amazing.
It's
Very amazing.
good. And so one final message I would love for you to I would love for you to address is, what message do you want to give to the youth?
I think just don't take yourself too seriously. Enjoy what you're doing. Make sure you're enjoying what you're doing. Don't do things just because you have to or you feel like you have to, because you don't know what's coming your way tomorrow. So whatever you want to do it now, do it today, and don't force yourself to do it.
Wow.
Amazing.
Great. So out of this whole thing, one adjective or one word which comes to my mind is warrior. And you are a warrior, and it's unbelievable what you've been through, and it's amazing. And I love your perspective, your positive attitude. It's really great, and it's coming from the bottom of my heart.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
This was very great. We're looking forward to maybe planning on more talks like these and more episodes. So thank you so much, everyone. Sushrut, would you like to say something?
This is one quote which is popping in my mind right now, which is, when you become fearless, life becomes limitless. And I would love, so that's what's popping in my mind right now while looking at this whole picture. And super amazing.
Very good.
Thank you so much.